Flights and Airships of the Last 400 Years. In one of Donald Trump's speeches, the president said that the Revolutionary Army of the 1700s took over the airports. The news moderators could hardly contain their disdain of Trump. He was ridiculed as uneducated and stupid for saying so. At the time, I thought it's just an innocent mistake. But what if it wasn't? After all, everyone knows the first airplane flight was in 1903 by the Wright brothers. I've even heard that 1903 was the birth of flight in documentaries and in school. That's if you ignore airships. Before the Wright brothers built an airplane, we had airships and hot air balloons. This is the airship La France, flying in 1885, powered by an electric motor. The first steam-powered airship flight took place as far back as 1852 by Henry Giffard in France. It carried passengers. Here's the Wikipedia entry on the page History of Aviation at the time of this writing. This is a little confusing because, according to the Smithsonian, this image dates back to 1846. Here's the entry at the time of this writing, showing 1846. So when did the first airship take flight? 1852 or 1846? An innocent error or a hint towards something bigger? The history makers need to get their story straight, lest they be called history fakers. Henri Giffard, who had won medals and fortune for his inventions, allegedly commits suicide in 1882. Hundreds of years earlier, in 1647, Tito Livio Burattini, an Egyptologist, architect, engineer, instrument maker, and nobleman, is said to have presented an aircraft to the King of Poland. It was called the Flying Dragon. On Wikipedia, it's called a model of an aircraft, not an aircraft itself, to assure the reader it couldn't have possibly flown. And yet the same article claims it flew a passenger cat. What's it going to be? Was it a model? Or it did fly passengers? You can't have both. Here's the relevant paragraph. And was it modelled after natural flying dragons? In the early 1700s, there lived a channeling medium by the name of Emanuel Swedenborg. In a state of spiritual trance, he wrote several about books heaven and higher realms. He also drew a sketch of what he called the flying machine in 1717. Egg-shaped flying saucers have been witnessed both in modern and ancient times. The Wikipedia page History of Aviation further informs us that on the 16th of May, 1793, the Spanish inventor Diego Marín Aguilera managed to cross the river Arandilla in Coruña del Conde, Castile, flying 300 to 400 meters with a flying machine. I'm glad to hear that because I had assumed the first flight was in 1903, as taught in school and heard in countless TV shows as a kid. Then I learned that the first airship flew in 1852 or 1846. And now I learn that a Spanish inventor was already flying in 1793. And this is only the official and mainstream stuff. We haven't even looked into the anomalous and hidden yet. Let's do that now. This appears to be an ad for the Aerial Transit Company from 1843. Wait, what? 1843? It's not presented as a science fiction story. It's presented as an ad to attract customers who would like to fly to the faraway pyramids of Egypt. There's a Wikipedia article on the carriage called Ariel. The Ariel steam carriage, also named Ariel, was a flying machine patented in England in 1842 that was supposed to carry passengers into the air. It was, in practice, incapable of flight since it had insufficient power from its heavy steam engine to fly. A more successful model was built in 1848, which was able to fly for small distances within a hangar. The aerial steam carriage was significant because it was a transition from glider experimentation to powered flight experimentation. If it was incapable of flight, as said here, then why was a patent granted, why were ads printed, and why was a successful model built a few years later? The writer's manipulative intent is obvious. It was incapable of flight, at which point most readers dismiss it. Had they read a little more, they'd find it was successful. This was published in 1848. The machine was in fact so successful that the government was ordering several for use in the surveying of Africa. Here's a poster of New York City in 1855 and a close-up of the flying device in it. This drawing is on display at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. The description says drawn from nature and on stone, no indication that it was fictitious. The aircraft is shown as a normal part of New York, not some futuristic vision. Below is an image of the Passarola airship in the year 1709, a few years before Emanuel Swedenborg says that they were just starting to fly. The website of the Smithsonian calls it fanciful flying ship, just to assure everyone that it must be fanciful. Because everyone knows our ancestors didn't fly, right? They've been around for more than 100,000 years, according to mainstream views, but they never figured out flying. The 1709 airship looks more advanced than the 1851. The story goes that the Passarola airship was used by Jesuit priest from Brazil, Bartolomeu Lourenço de Gusmão, to demonstrate flight to King João V of Portugal in 1709. Gusmão's papers were destroyed during the Inquisition, so who knows? It's convenient to destroy an inventor's work and then say it was fanciful. If it was meaningless, why did it need to be destroyed? There are other designs from the time that show bird heads at the front of the airship. The above was said to be the airship of the Emperor Leopold I, King of Austria, Hungary, Croatia, and Bohemia, drawn in Vienna in 1667. Leopold was of the House of Habsburg, one of the most powerful royal families of Europe. He is said to have stopped the expansion of the Ottoman Empire to Western Europe. The beautiful drawing below is dated to 1890 from the book La Vie électrique, The Electric Life, by Albert Robida. We see the spaghetti wires and high-frequency antennas so common for the time. Albert Robida's drawings are called science fiction. But are they really? The antennas existed, the spaghetti wires existed. By 1890, antennas, airships, and wires existed. So in which sense is this Robida drawing science fiction? Robida has many more drawings like this. You can look them up online. Here's one more. This is from the 1890 book, The Angel of the Revolution, a tale of coming terror. It too is presented as a science fiction novel. If you've read my previous articles on atmospheric energy, you'll notice something peculiar. The ship has the energy harvesting antennas I previously linked to ships of the late 1700s, the time of revolutions around the globe. This is a 1780 drawing of two ships in combat, using the energy harvesters. The American Revolutionary War went from 1775 to 1883. The French Revolution went from 1789 to 1799. At the same time, wars around the world. Looking at the Revolutionary War as a singular event is an error. What was really happening, in my view, was that troops were deployed worldwide to get rid of the old world. Revolutionary soldiers finished the job that couldn't be completed from the air. The Native American myths about airships destroying their land are true. Are the science fiction stories merely couched as fiction to recount events 100 years prior? Is it a method of sharing what happened without breaking non-disclosure agreements or frightening the public? Why is a 1890 science fiction story drawing an image of the same type of ship shown 100 years before? Why is the ship called the Angel of Revolution? Are these the airships that caused worldwide the destruction of Western America, the Arabian Gulf region, Siberia, and Antarctica, as previously shown? Wikipedia summarizes the book, a lurid mix of Jules Verne's futuristic air warfare fantasies and the utopian visions of News from Nowhere, and a precursor of Wells' future The War in the Air and the war invasion literature of George Tompkins Chesney and his imitators. It told the tale of a group of self-styled terrorists who conquer the world through airship warfare. Led by a crippled, brilliant Russian Jew and his daughter, the angel Natasha, the Brotherhood of Freedom establish a Pax Aeronautica over the Earth after a young inventor masters the technology of flight in 1903. The hero falls in love with Natasha and joins in her war against established society in general and the Russian Tsar in particular. This image also comes from revolutionary times dating to 1780. It too is labeled science fiction. This one shows an air battle of 1665. The drawing is often used in UFO books to prove aliens in ancient times, but why does it have to be aliens? Because everyone knows humans didn't fly until recently. This is a 1664 design of a floating saucer by a man named Gaspar Schott. Not an alien, a man. It's armored for battle. Gaspar Schott was a Jesuit and a scientist of mathematics, physics, natural philosophy, and an inventor. Gaspar Schott's drawings are a treasure trove of arcane knowledge for alternate history researchers. He also drew humanoid reptilians, among many other things. Does his device fly or only float on water? I don't know. But now I know that a Jesuit drew up a saucer-like device in the 1600s at a time many people were seeing flying saucers. And another Jesuit drew up the Passarola airship we saw earlier. But why? Aren't Jesuits just mediating monks? No, they are the military arm of the Catholic Church. In 1893, the French science fiction author Camille Flammarions, who was also a scientist and astronomer, published a book titled The End of the World. An image from the book. Knowing what we know from our research so far, is this really fiction? Or is it, again, a retelling of what happened in the past, framed as fiction? From the same book, apparent knowledge about TV/internet long before it ever came to be. In light of what I've learned here so far, a Wikipedia article titled Mystery Airship no longer makes sense. The Mystery Airship, or Phantom Airship, was an airship that thousands of people across the United States claimed to have observed during late 1896 and early 1897. Typical airship reports involved nighttime sightings of unidentified lights, but more detailed accounts reported ships comparable to a dirigible. Mystery airship reports are seen as a cultural predecessor to modern claims of extraterrestrial piloted flying saucer-style UFOs. Other pages on Wikipedia have established that airships were flown since 1846. So why are these airships considered a mystery? Further below, the article says, the airship wave of 1896 to 1897. The best known of the mystery airship waves began in California in 1896. Afterwards, reports and accounts of similar airships came from other areas, generally moving eastward across the country. Some accounts during this wave of airship reports claimed that occupants were visible on some airships, and encounters with the pilots were reported as well. These occupants often appeared to be human, though their behavior, mannerisms, and clothing were sometimes reported to be unusual. Sometimes the apparent humans claimed to be from the planet Mars. Historian Mike Dash described and summarized the 1896 to 1897 series of airship sightings, writing, "The general conclusion of investigators was that a considerable number of the simpler sightings were misidentification of planets and stars, and a large number of the more complex the result of hoaxes and practical jokes. A small residuum remains perplexing." 18. The 1896 to 1897 wave of sightings came in two separate phases, one largely in California in late 1896 and one in the central and eastern U.S. in spring 1897. 19. The total number of reported sightings was in the thousands. Based on newspaper reports, the total number of witnesses may have exceeded 100,000. 20. From this, we can tell that the 1800s were a time in which the powers that be were trying to change the narrative. The story I learned in school was that human flight, apart from hot air balloons, started in 1903. The Mystery Airships articles belong to the narrative that flight started in 1903, so these airships must have been extraterrestrial. This is why so much on the mystery airships is published in the UFO scene. But then evidence to the contrary became so overwhelming that the powers that be acknowledged that airships were being used since at least 1850, so the hype around mystery airships is outmoded. Nothing mysterious about them. Meanwhile, some aviation websites have further backtracked, saying people have experimented with flight since the 1700s. I laugh out loud. The fact that the alien UFO narrative was already being formed in the late 1800s is best shown in the 1897 UFO incident in Aurora, Texas. The Aurora, Texas UFO incident reportedly occurred on April 17, 1897, when, according to locals, a UFO crashed on a farm near Aurora, Texas. The incident, similar to the more famous Roswell UFO incident 50 years later, is claimed to have resulted in a fatality of the pilot. The pilot was not of this world and was said to be an alien. The pilot was buried at the Aurora Cemetery. A stone was placed as a marker for the grave, but has since been removed. On April 19, 1897, an article in the Dallas Morning News written by S.E. Hayden described the UFO crash. The UFO is said to have hit a windmill on the property of a Judge J.S. Proctor 2 days earlier at around 6 a.m. local Central Time, resulting in its crash. The pilot, who was reported to be not of this world, and a Martian, according to a reported Army Signal Service officer named T.J. Weems from nearby Fort Worth, did not survive the crash and was buried with Christian rites at the nearby Aurora Cemetery. The cemetery contains a Texas Historical Commission marker mentioning the incident. See the problem here? Even though airships were already known and flown for 50 years, a crashed aircraft is labeled Martian by an Army officer. Even though the pilot was a normal human being, according to newspaper articles of the time, he mysteriously turns into a Martian if we ask Wikipedia. This is a newspaper article from the time. The article talks about an airship piloted by a human. The Wikipedia article, on the other hand, mentions Roswell, Martians, and UFO. Here's what this whole thing looks like, and I'm only speculating here. The ruling elite reset the entire world between 1777 and 1816, the year without summer nuclear fallout. Because it was reset, humans were to learn flying all over again. The L-Light took their flying machines and flew elsewhere, to unknown continents beyond the ice wall, keeping an eye on us from a distance. Evidence of flying before the 1900s was erased or assigned to aliens. Flight using atmospheric energy was no longer desired because it was too destructive, it was misused, or the airlight couldn't profit off of free energy, I don't know. There are a lot of other possible explanations for what happened, so take mine with a grain of salt. I hope to have opened your mind to the possibility, a mere possibility, that flight has been practiced almost without pause through all of history and not just 120 years ago.